And we will go ahead and get started. And again, just like I said, so we are talking about relationship goals for the month of January. And in tonight's conversation, we're talking about unlocking the secret to achieving your relationship goals, even if you are 40 plus. Honey, 40 plus, I love it. I love being 40 plus. So again, write down any questions that you have because I try to stay focused because I don't you guys don't know it yet, but I can chase butterflies. And so if I start looking at the chat and looking at my notes and different things like that, I will get off topic, honey, and start talking about something totally different. So in order for me to stay focused, write any questions that you have, write them down because at the end, I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions, share, or whatever you want to do at the end of tonight's conversation. So we're going to get right into it. Again, the topic is unlock the secret to achieving your relationship goals, even if you are 40 plus. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to start off with relationship goals is because I wanted it to be where we set the course for the next 12 months, right? And so every month is going to build on each other. And so this month, I wanted you guys to really take some time, really be thoughtful about what your specific goals are, right? And so I'm going to give you five, I think I can have five, yeah, 5 points. And the first point in unlocking the secret to achieving your relationship goals is to develop a healthy relationship with yourself. And one of the reasons why that is so important is because we chase relationships with men, but some of us, and let me speak for myself. And I'm not sure if you guys have like kind of heard my testimony and just some of the things that I've shared, like, as it relates to my background. But even before I was saved, right, jacked up relationships, you come into the kingdom, and I just had this mindset because I didn't know no better, that now that I'm saved, things are just going to automatically be different for me. Different in my mind, different in my emotions, different in my relationships. But I brought the same mentality that I had in the world over into the kingdom. And so I was getting the same results. And one of the things that God brought me to a place to see was I was trying to have relationships with a man or men when I didn't have a healthy relationship with myself. And a lot of it came out of the rejection that I had with my father, the relationships that I had in the world, the relationships that I had in the kingdom. And Galatians 5:14 says that we are to love our neighbor, right, as we love ourselves. So here I am, just jacked up, damaged, cracked, bleeding, wounded, trying to have a relationship with somebody else, but I didn't have a healthy one with me. And so some of the symptoms of me not having a healthy relationship with myself was I was very critical of myself, right? I was very judgmental of myself. I had a lot of negative thoughts about myself. I was too this. I was not enough of that. Who would want me? And at that time, listen, y'all, where's the pencil? I was this big. And I was like, nobody wants me. I'm this black girl. I don't have no curves. And I remember, and this when I was in the world, my friends love to go to the club. Well, the club really wasn't my thing because honestly, it was just too much competition for me, right? But I remember this one time, honey, I was going to fit in. And I went and I bought this cat suit, right? And I bought these Evan Pacone boots, baby. Black, honey. I was black from top to bottom. It was spandex. So I go to the club and I think, and I am popping. Okay. So I shouldn't say for the first time, but I would have like these sparks of confidence, right? For the most part, I'm feeling all, negative about myself, all these negative thoughts and stuff like this. But honey, this night I had on the cat suit, the Evan Pacone boots, honey. My jewelry was popping, and I thought I was the bomb.com. So I'm walking around in the club, honey. I got my little drink going, and I'm just smiling, and I'm sitting because I wasn't really a dancer. And so I'm just sitting down, and for the most part. And so I remember I got up to go do something. And honey, when I got up is when I noticed that the cat suit, honey, had something going on. I had these puckers in my knees, like the fabric. My butt, the butt that I didn't have, girl, the fabric was hanging. Okay, okay. So it was like, and I just remember thinking, this is why I don't come out. I can't compete. Everybody else, if I was thicker, I would be able to fill out the cat suit. And, I just had like all of these issues and all of these negative thoughts about myself, all of these negative feelings about myself, right? And I brought that same mentality. I brought that same negative perception that I had about myself into the kingdom. And so when I was actually engaged to another guy before I married my husband, but it was like even out of that choice, me choosing him and the things that I tolerated with him was because I did not have a healthy relationship with myself. I didn't think well enough of myself to not tolerate some of the things that I tolerated in him. Even the fact that I chose him was a symptom of the relationship that I had with myself. So I just say that to say, number one, before you can even reach for sometimes a relationship with another person, really check the relationship that you have with yourself. And I can honestly say that once I stepped back and God gave me that revelation and I began to do some work. And sometimes I know for me, it was really hard to admit certain things that were present in me. Introspection was really difficult for me, but it was one of the greatest blessings and one of the greatest disciplines that has blessed me even over the years because I really do that introspection. And once I came out of that relationship with that person, and I realized that I didn't like myself. I didn't feel deserving of healthy love, right? I didn't feel like I was capable of attracting a godly man, not just some dude that go to church, not some man that goes to church, honey, and maybe know one scripture, which is Jesus wept, right? I'm just saying, I didn't think that I was deserving. And once, God showed me, that I was not loving myself the way that he had called me to love myself. I was not loving myself the way that I needed to love myself in order to have a healthy relationship with another person. I began to do the work. And so I went from, having the self-sabotage, but sabotaging behavior because of how I felt about myself, the negative things I thought about myself. I went from that end of the spectrum to really learning how to respect myself, compliment myself, right? Have a positive and healthy opinion about myself. And I literally, this is honestly God's truth, I began to chew on the scriptures so much that I went from one end of the spectrum to the other end where I literally had, there was a point where I had to make sure that I was not walking in vanity, and so I've learned to live in the middle. But it was just such a blessing that for once in my life, I felt good about myself. Like even if on a bad hair day, I still felt like I had value and I had worth. And so I just really want to emphasize number one, the first key is make sure, do that introspection and make sure that you have a healthy relationship with yourself before you, try to have a relationship with another man. Not another man, but with a man. Number two, set clear and specific goals for what you want in a relationship. Let me say it again. Set clear and specific goals for what you want in a relationship that you're looking for. Habakkuk 2:2 says, write the vision and make it plain, right? And so I remember years ago, like my husband, there's like a 13-year difference between my husband and I, right? And so he is nothing digital. Girl, he does good, honey, just to answer his phone. Okay. He don't need no bells, no whistles. He's just not, tech savvy at all. And so not a couple of years, but years ago, because my husband has a thing, honey, about if lights are on, if the computer light is on or something like that. You're burning up the electricity. So I asked him to go turn off my computer for me. And back in the day, this is when it had like the tower. And I think they still make them like that, but with the tower, and it's just a simple button, girl. It's just a button. You just push the little button and it just, powers it off. And I said to my husband, honey, can you, go up to my office and turn off my computer, look for this tall base, it's on the floor under the desk, and just, press the button, there's a light. And as God is my witness, my sweet husband was gone for so long that I forgot that I even asked him to do it. And so then when I went and I looked for him, girl, he was still trying to figure out where the button was. Now, I use that analogy because a lot of times, let me speak for myself. When I was, let me bring coming into the kingdom. Let me start at that reference point, because that's when I start kind of getting some revelations about some things. Like I was just straight ignorant in the world, right? But when I came into the kingdom, there were some things that I began to learn. And one of the things that I learned was, because I wasn't clear about what I was looking for in a relationship, I wasn't as easy to recognize the person that I didn't want because I wasn't clear about what I wanted. And just like with my husband, he wasn't clear about where the button was. He didn't know what he was looking for to do the thing that I asked him to do. And so because I wasn't clear, I ended up with somebody. Now, we talking in the kingdom, ladies, okay? On the front row, sitting on the front pew, hands lifted up, honey. He said they were holy hands. They wasn't holy, y'all. Hands lifted up, praise and worship, tither, offering giver, serving in the church, all of that. But he was a whoremonger. He was verbally abusive. He was physically abusive. And even initially, right, when we began to talk and all of that, because I had not taken the time to really sit down and really map out what it is that I wanted, right? So for example, to meet and marry somebody who shares my values and my belief systems, and who was wanting to be in a long-term monogamous relationship. Now, he was the opposite of those things, right? So, didn't want children, like all of these things. But the issues that we had, really, I say, started with me, because I wasn't clear about what I was looking for. And because of that, I could not clearly see things in him that would have disqualified him had I been clear on what I was looking for in a relationship. So that's point number two. Number two, be crystal clear about what it is you are looking for in a relationship with a man, the type of relationship you want to have with a man, and the things that you are looking for in the person that you would marry. And I'm not talking, girls, we get the list, and listen. Some people, they have these things about, tear up your list. I believe that lists have their place, right? But I'm not saying, like the superficial things, he got to be tall and, handsome. However, you might want some eye candy. That's almost like a given. But you want to make sure that you're listing out those things. And when I say clear, like be specific, like one of the things that I said for me, and I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I didn't say need. There wasn't a need. It was a need want. But I said, Lord, I need a man that has a prayer life. I said, and I need a man that has a prayer life apart from me. And I said, and as a matter of fact, I said, God, I need to see him praying. And I noticed my husband in prayer. Like at our church, we would, during that time, I think prayer was like at 5:00 in the morning or something like that. And that's where I noticed my husband in prayer. He was faithful. Honey, he wasn't paying me no attention, thank God. And I wasn't paying him no attention at that time either. But I just say that to say that was one of the things that was important for me, that he had a prayer life, right? That he understood how to possess his body in sanctification and in honor. And the reason I say that is because I had already dealt with men who were whoremongers, who did not have any self-control. They didn't have no eye control. Like, we out on a date, not my husband, but the guy that I was going to marry before my husband, plus the men in the world. We out on a date, we're hanging out, and you know how it is. That we walk by some woman, honey, the eye goes over and the head kind of tilts a little bit. Like, no. I need a man who has made a covenant with his eyes that he would now look upon another woman with lust in his heart. He only has eyes for me. So those were some of the things that I wrote down for me, that he was disciplined in his finances, right? And so why is that important? Because just like number one, right, having a relationship, even with yourself, knowing what it is that you're looking for, it's going to set the path as you're meeting potential suitors. So when you're clear about what it is that you're looking for, you will be more easily able to disqualify somebody, right? Like, no, he seems like he's just a little too controlling, right? No, it seems like he has, some issues with lust, right? Like he can't keep his hands off of you or whatever. So you determine what your values are, the specific things that you are looking for in a relationship. What do you want your relationship to look like? And what do you want in the person that you would commit your life to and will be a life partner for you, right? So number one is develop a healthy relationship with yourself. Number two is set clear and specific goals for what you want in a relationship. And then number three is identify those areas in your life that needs personal development and growth, and pick one to focus on. Let me say that again. Identify those areas in your life that need personal development and growth, and then pick one to focus on. And so, as we do that introspection, do you need personal development and growth in maybe confidence, your attitude, forgiving, finances, right? So as you do that self-assessment, out of your list, like I had a list, ladies, I had a list of things that I knew that I needed to work on. And the one thing and the reason why I emphasize pick one is because let me speak for myself. Even today, right? I think I got saved at 23. I am now 51. And from now and even to today, when I think about like the areas that I am undone in, right? And some of the things that need adjusting in my life, if I look at things even from that perspective, or just things that need to be done in life, when I look at everything at once, it's overwhelming. And it can just shut you down. Like, it's just too much. Like, I can't do none of it. And you just don't do any of it. So when you do, when you identify the areas that need their personal development and growth, and you pick one, that's how you really will begin to see traction, right? And I remember the one thing, and you ladies probably, have already heard me say this on other videos, but for me, even in the kingdom, my tongue was sharp. And I mean, my tongue was sharp. And I got it from my mother. And, I was never like a physical fighter unless I had to, but it was like I would fight with my words. And I was the type of person, and thank God I could say I was the type of person that I would find the biggest thing that you were insecure about. And I would just talk about that. Honey, I would resurrect a dead mother from the grave and talk about your mama. I would just talk. I would go low. You talk about hitting below the belt, honey. I'm hitting your knees just with my words. And so as I began to prepare for marriage, right? And again, I did that introspection of myself. I knew that about myself. And I said, God, I want to give myself in my marriage the best opportunity to be healthy and to thrive and to have longevity. And the one thing I know about me that will mess it up is my mouth. I always had to be right. I didn't know how to shut up, right? And I would say things, I would say wounding words on purpose. And as a part of my preparation, I chose, like, out of all the things, like when I think about my list, I was not good with finances. I overspent. I had a lot of debt. Um, excuse me. I was still working on my confidence, right? I had issues with my mouth. And I'm talking about I'm saved, right? I am a child of God. And yes, I was still undone. And so when I looked at those things, out of all of the things that I could list that I know needed personal growth and development, I chose the one thing that I would focus on that would make the greatest impact and give me the greatest opportunity to be happily married. And I remember I came into covenant with myself and God that I would never say anything to my husband that I even if I said that I was sorry, he would have to deal with the words that I loosed out of my mouth, for the rest of his life. Because you know how it is. Somebody can say something hurtful and you can say that you're sorry and you mean it. Well, let me put it on the other end. Somebody can say something to us hurtful, like really hurtful, and they say that they're sorry and they may really mean it, but we are now still left with dealing with what was said, right? And that woundedness can just cycle and hover for years and even be a trigger because they said the thing, they're sorry, you can't take back words. And if a person isn't disciplined and casting down imaginations and forgiving and different things like that, a person can live under the weight of words, right? And so I did. I came into covenant with myself and God, and I said, God, I would, I will never say anything to my husband that I can't take back and that he would have to deal with for the rest of his life. And so even when I said that, ladies, my harshness in my words and different things like that, it just was not exclusive to men. It was like, honey, if I go to the store and you rub me wrong with my saved self, okay, I'm popping off at the mouth, honey, attitude and all this other type of stuff. So once I made that covenant, I then had an opportunity to practice, right? So practice with my friends, my family, people that I interacted with, just in everyday life. And so, like 1 Corinthians 13:4, it says, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I could check off everything that was wrong with me or the thing that I was dealing with. I was not kind. I was not patient. I was very rude, still envious, right? I was still had pride. It was like I had all these things. But the one thing that I had to focus on was the rudeness with my words. And so for you, it may not be that, but identify whatever the thing is for you that needs personal growth and development, and then just focus on one thing and perfect it, right? Master whatever that thing is. So if it's confidence, let that be your focus, because even the confidence impacts or directly is related to how you choose or whether or not you choose, whether you get out on the dating scene, whether you don't get out on the dating scene. So whatever it is for you, identify it and make sure that that's the one thing. And don't look at all the other things. And it's not that you don't continue to, evaluate your behavior in light of the word, your thoughts in light of the word. You can continue to do that work. But I'm just saying, make sure that whatever that one thing, that is like your focus. Like I am going to fix this thing. So whether it's therapy, Because listen, I have said to some women, you really need some anger management. You really need to go get into some counseling, get into some type of group or something. You have anger management. Anger issues, and you need some anger management. So, like, whatever the thing is, and whatever it is that you need, right, in order to get that traction and that discipline, and to really deal with that thing, because the goal is not just to be married. That's the one thing that I tell women. Listen, it ain't hard to get married. It is too many homeless men, honey, looking for shelter, and he will be happy to marry you. You don't just want to be married. You want to be happily married. You want to be fulfilled in your marriage, right? And you want the health to be on both ends, health with you and health with the person that's going to be your life partner, right? That death will part you. So let me go to number 4. Honey, establish your boundaries. And again, what are we talking about? Unlocking the secrets to achieving your relationship goals, even if you are 40 plus. Boundaries, 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 ladies. Establish what your boundaries are. And I remember last year, my daughter, our youngest daughter, Hannah, she had this homework assignment. And it was some poem, and I can't remember the name of the poem, but the poem was talking about these two neighbors, right? And one neighbor was building this wall between their two properties. And the neighbor that was building the wall, his perspective was, walls, it keeps, keeps us safe. It sets boundaries, right? And he had like all of the things that a wall represented and the advantages of having a wall. Well, the neighbor, on the other hand, they were like, no, walls are offensive. The walls are not neighborly, and all these different things. And I remember at the time that, and God is so gracious, at the time that she had that homework assignment, she was actually dealing with something as it related to, like, this little person at school. And I was able to minister to her the necessity of setting boundaries, because Hannah, she's very kind, right? And sometimes she would consider others, and even the scripture talks about, we should, put others before ourselves and different things like that. But there's we have to even put that into perspective. And so this person that she was dealing with was a friend, right? It was a new, relationship, little girl. She wasn't respecting her words. She wasn't necessarily respecting her space. It was just these issues. And so the thing that I said to her was, and this is the benefit of boundaries. And when you set boundaries for yourself, those boundaries, again, serve as a guide as to what you will and will not allow, right? Boundaries make for peace. Boundaries makes for clarity in relationships. And a lot of times where we miss it is when we get in relationships, we're trying to establish boundaries as we go, right? But the boundaries need to be set before you go. Because when you think about boundaries, like specifically, what am I talking about? Like, what would be your emotional boundaries? Because sometimes, and God created us emotional, right? We're very feeling creatures. And so if we meet somebody, the conversation is good, right? You've gone out on several days spending time. We really begin to feel, right? And so, and sometimes, honey, we might be saying, honey, I love you. Okay, I know it's only been 30 days, but I just feel like I love you. But what are your boundaries and your emotions? Like, being able to almost like counsel yourself, like, Cynthia, we're not falling fast like that. No, 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 no. I'm not giving him all this emotional support like I'm his wife. No, 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 no. Setting those boundaries, and you knowing what those boundaries are in your emotions, you knowing what those boundaries are, even in a physical touch. Like, for me and my husband, listen, I figured out real fast that our boundaries are holding hands in public, like in public. If we're in a movie, put your hand in your popcorn and that's it. Because bef- before I was saved, and even once I got saved, I was highly sexualized, right? Was in a porn, at an early age, and like all of these things. And so my body knew what touch. I wasn't a virgin, right? My body had memory. And so I figured out real early, me and my husband. And I think you listen, if I am being redundant, and you've heard it before, bear with me and just hear it one more time. But I remember when we were in our courtship and we went to the movies, right? We went to see some movie. And I was looking out super cute. It was hot outside, and we're in the theater, and my husband put his hand on my knee. In some kind of way, ladies, that hand started moving. And it wasn't him moving it, okay? And so then I was like, wait a minute, hold it. Something is about to go down. And it was at that moment, me and my husband, we understood, no, not only we will only hold hands when the lights are on, like if we're in the mall or, or something like that. We are going to drive our own cars and we're going to meet each other where we're going to go. And I tell people too, but you have to know for yourself, like what your boundaries were. Like for me, what was important for me was to make it to my wedding day without having slept with my husband. And whatever it took for me to do that, those are the boundaries that I set in place. But not just that, what financial boundaries are you going to set in place, right? Like how much are you going to be willing to give and receive? Because when you think about the makeup, and I shouldn't even say the makeup, some men think that when they're giving you things, they expect something in return. So you have to really kind of set up what your parameters are, like what type of gifts are you, and I'm not outside of a meal, but honey, some men, honey, are so cheap and so carnal, honey, they think, 3 meals later that you owe them something. Hello. So time, how much time, like, so let's just say you meet this potential suitor and things seem to be going well. How much time, what are your boundaries as it relates to the time that you're going to give him before you move to the next level? Like, how much time are you going to give yourself or the relationship for you to determine whether or not this is somebody that you want to, maybe like go to the next level with? And when I say next level, when I think about dating, from a Christian perspective, there is like a window of, I'm not saying that I want to marry you. Yes, maybe, you want to be married, I want to be married, but I ain't saying I want to marry you. It's like that I call it like a discovery phase. You kind of getting to know each other and different things like that. And the next phase is the courtship. Okay, like we're going to get married and now we're in that planning stage. How much time are you going to give that? And the reason why, I'm telling, especially with that time, honey, and in the title, it said 40 plus. After a certain age, you don't have time to be wasting, right? So you need to be clear and set your boundaries up, because again, those boundaries are going to help you navigate the relationship. How much of your emotions are you going to give? How much emotional support are you going to give to him? Because a lot of times it's very instinctive for us to get into wife mode, right? So make sure those things are established. So number one, develop healthy relationship with yourself. 2, set clear and specific goals for what you want in a relationship. 3, identify the areas in your life that needs personal development and growth, and pick one, and that's all you focus on. Establish your boundaries. And number 5, this is our last one, develop your faith. Develop your faith in God. Matthew 7:11 says, you who are evil know how to give good gifts let me start over. Matthew 7:11. You who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children. How much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask of him? God is a good God. God is a loving Father. And so a lot of times, and let me speak for myself, when I got saved, I did not have a healthy relationship. I did not have a healthy understanding of a father because of my unhealthy relationship that I had with my father, right? And how my father was. My father was not dependable. My father did not like me. My father was cruel to me. And so I didn't have a healthy reference point when it came to a father, right? And so I literally I struggled initially in my trust with God and my feeling like even in prayer, because, prayer is talking to God, right? And so I even saw that as like confiding in God. And so I struggled a little bit, with my relationship with God. But when you are looking, I mean, even in life, but because we're talking about relationships, it's so important that you develop your faith in Him, because it's that's where all things flow, right? Every good and perfect gift comes from Him. And when our faith is not developed, and it's not that doubt won't come, it's not that those periods of discouragement won't come, but the more you develop your faith in God, develop your faith in His word, develop your faith in His process, you're more able to stand. And it's like you'll come to a place where it's a reflex. You have this disappointment. Maybe you met some person and it seemed like things were going well and it didn't work out. And it hurts, right? You feel discouraged. But then the reflex will rise up on the inside of you that God loves me too much to have forgotten about me. He's written my name in the palm of His hands. And it's like you go to that and you meditate on that, right? And it's like a reflex, and it keeps you focused on where your help is coming from. Because out of all the things that we're going to do, that's just our part. But when I also say His process, I'm even talking about process in the laws that God has instituted, and just the things that He's given a believer that has given us an edge in life. And so often I find that we in the kingdom, God has given us the edge, right? God has given us Himself. God has given us His word, but we haven't necessarily developed to the point where we can take Him at His word with confidence in the light of what we see, in the light of how we feel. We might need to develop a little bit more in what is His word and how to really stand on His word, how to really war with His word, how to be like Abraham and not consider what we see, but count God faithful who promised, right? And so faith is such a key element to the life of the believer, in general. But as you're navigating these relationships, understand that, yes, we're going to do our part. But when faith gets involved, because faith is a force. And when the light comes on, God will just, the Holy Spirit will begin to lead and guide you. You would do things that you would not have thought about doing. You would go places that you may not necessarily have thought about. You will be in a place at the right time to connect with the right person who is specific for you. Like, it doesn't have to be this long and drawn out process. And it starts with faith in God, faith in His word, and faith in His process. Amen. So, what questions do you have? I hope that blessed you. I hope I slowed it down enough where you got something out of it, but I want to hear from you. What questions or what comments do you have?